Hi, it's Jasmin. You know, that girl who did you know what way before the internet ever existed. Join me and my special guest every week as we talk about anything and everything because nothing is too taboo. So punch your ticket and get on board the Krazy Train with me, Jasmin St. All aboard! Welcome to a brand new episode of Krazy Train podcast. I have to say, this was definitely one of those interviews I was looking forward to because not only is this woman beautiful, but my guest has a very long history with Japan and a very special and artistic one. But on top of all of that, she is a sex educator. So there's something to learn from her, I think, for everyone. So let's welcome to the show, Tiffany Chan. Thank you so much for joining me today, Tiffany. I'm in love with your photos and all of the little outfits that you're wearing and everything like that. But most importantly, I'm very intrigued by Tiffany's secret diaries.
Oh, thank you so much for having me here. And yeah, the Tiffany Secret Diary is the behind the scenes of my life and something that has been a passion project and burning in the back of my mind for several years. And I finally made the jump, and I'm happy that it's being so well received.
I know that you're listed as a holistic sexual educator. Is that the correct way to put this?
It is, yes, a certified holistic sex educator and a board certified sexologist.
So, how does that work being a holistic sex educator? Because I'm actually a menopause consultant, a menopause coach, I should say, but I don't go the holistic way. I go completely opposite way with things. How do you do holistics with sexual education?
Holistic is more about the whole person. So the idea being that in order to have a great sex life or to at least feel fulfilled sexually, you need to have the other things in your life sort of in place. And one really helps to feed the others. A lot of times we have so many things going on around us. We're, stressed with work, stressed with kids. We aren't taking care of ourselves emotionally, physically, nutritionally. And that affects our sex life in many ways. And then vice versa. If we aren't being fed sexually, it can sometimes show up in different ways in our work environment and how we handle different situations around us. So the idea is that sex is a part of it, but it's really about taking care of the whole person. Does that kind of make sense?
Sort of. I mean, I like how you just described it and then ended it with, "Does that make sense?" I feel as though I'm talking to my therapist right now. Um, yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of how I tend to be all the time. It's also the professor side of me. I always make sure I end things with, hey, do you have any questions?
And then you're always looking at the clock at that point. Is it 45 minutes up right now? But you seem to have the perfect demeanor for that type of business, for holistic specifically. So, how long have you been doing this exactly? And what brought you into this world of holistic sex education?
Oh my goodness. So I've been doing this in one capacity or another as an educator since about 2020. And prior to that, I was actually in academia. I was a graduate and undergraduate English essay writing professor and taught a lot of world literature. And then I ended up becoming a director of educational technology for a Fortune 500. And I hated everything about it. I absolutely, like, it was the best job I'd ever had, and I hated it. And I didn't feel like any part of myself was being seen. I was a woman in a man's world kind of thing. And I was really looked down upon. And I started realizing that there were all of these pieces of my life that were just feeling super unfulfilled. And I had these dreams of wanting to do something more with myself. I wanted to feel passionate about something. And every time I would go back, and again, with my therapist, she's like, well, where do you feel the most happy? Like, what are you doing when you feel the most happy? Well, I feel happiest when I'm writing, when I'm talking about sex. And, is that something that makes me a deviant? Like, what's wrong with me for this? And she was like, I think you need to look into some other things. And I started looking into becoming a sex educator and what that might look like. And then a whole world started opening up when the world closed down, and I went on TikTok of all things. I started trying to just get out there and do something fun for myself. And at the time I was wearing my collar, and I have a rolled steel eternity collar that my partner gave me. And when we met each other, we were in DS dynamic and whatnot. And people started asking about the collar, not about anything else. And I became an unintentional kink educator. And the more people were asking, and the more like my Instagram and my TikTok and everything was just rolling because of the educational aspect of it. I stopped and went, I want some credentials behind this. I already have my doctorate. I've got all these other credentials, but I need like a sexuality specific credential. So I found IC, the Institute of Sexuality Education and Enlightenment, and found through ASECT that I could get credentialed in teaching people about sex, but not just the elements of sex itself, like the anatomy and everything else, but how to incorporate the rest of their lives, how to have more pleasure in their lives, and how to not feel ashamed. And I felt so ashamed through most of my life. I wanted to create a space for other people to come and know that they were safe and this was a safe container and there was nothing wrong with them. So that was kind of how it all started back in 2020 through a silly TikTok of all things. And then it sparked from there.
I mean, I really praise you for that because I can't get down with all of these apps. And I started posting on TikTok, then I stopped. I feel like I have to have someone post for me. You know what I mean? Post like little clips of the videos and stuff because they're well recepted, but I just well received, but I just don't do it. Um, how long did it take you to get the sex educator credential?
It took me a year and a half total. So I needed a little over 600 clinical hours. And then I also needed all of the coursework and I had to go through my training program. I had to go through a SAR, sexuality oh gosh, I can never remember the exact term for it, the SAR. So where a bunch of people get together for 3 days and watch every type of porn imaginable. And the idea is to desensitize you to it and to learn about it and what is actually out there and what people really enjoy. So there were a lot of workshops and gosh, it seemed like it took forever. And then I still have to go and see my supervisor about every 6 months or so. And that keeps my credential active.
Okay, well, that's very interesting. I mean, I don't know. I couldn't sit there and do the watch the porn part. I guess it's because being a part of that industry, I don't want to see this, and I sure as hell don't want to be talking about it with anyone. It's one of those weird things, right? I guess it's different with you because you actually really like what you're doing, which is very important. How
Oh,
are you
yes.
looked down upon in a man's world? I wonder if they were ashamed about their sex lives, possibly. I don't know.
Through most of my life, it seems like funny enough, up until about 2020, the person that you see right now is not the same person that I used to be in any which way, shape, or form. I was in a really nasty relationship for many, many years and was really, how do I put it? I don't want to say caged up, but if I tried to dress sexy, I was told, who are you dressing for? That type of thing. And I hated everything about it. Spent 10 years in this relationship, finally broke free from it. And as I started going out into the world and wanting to dress the way I felt most comfortable, I was still getting looked down upon. So I would be in this, in a meeting with this group of other men, and they would just look at me like I was nothing. They would talk down to me. It was just, who are you? Why are you here? This little tiny, blonde chick. What are you doing here? I would go to work and I started dressing very masculine. Like I would have collars up to here. I covered up all of my tattoos. I even chopped all my hair off. Like I had a pixie cut for a long time. Wouldn't wear makeup, and people started treating me with a little bit more respect. But I didn't feel like myself. I felt like I was trying to be in this world and giving them what they wanted, but I wasn't happy with it. So once I broke free of kind of all of that, and funny enough, it was when I was going through my training program and I needed to pay for it. I ended up starting an OnlyFans.
Uh-huh.
So once I started doing OnlyFans, that's what actually paid for my sexuality education program, but it also gave me an outlet to be who I wanted to be. And I felt so much more empowered. And within a couple of months, I was able just to say, fuck you to the job. And this has been my life ever since. And I've never been happier.
It seems like a lot of girls use a lot of women, girls, use OnlyFans as a great place to kickstart businesses or, keep this whole online fantasy going between them and their fans. I had a guest on the show once who told me that she reads Shakespeare in lingerie, and every guy tunes in for that. I have an OnlyFans. I just don't post content on there because I'm lazy. I just don't know. Like, I know what guys want to see and everything, and I'm just not going to do that. If they want to do Nespresso mornings with me to see what Nespresso I choose, maybe that's something I'm considering. Okay, it's not like set in stone. I'm considering doing it. I don't know. What was on your OnlyFans? I have to ask because you're so pretty and you're so well spoken and clearly you're intelligent. So it's not the normal or the typical OnlyFans content creator.
When I first started, it started very. I look back now and I almost think it was silly, but I actually really loved it, and people keep asking for me to bring it back. I would do painting sessions. Like, I really enjoy being nude. I'm very comfortable with my body. It's not a big deal to me, and so I really enjoy just being there and chit chatting with people. And I would just be painting away, just sitting there and having a full blown conversation with my fans. And most of my fans at the time were couples. It wasn't even just men, it was couples. So it was really cool to sit and have that sort of open conversation. And so many of them would come and say, this is like the type of friend I want. Like, I wish I had friends like you in real life where you could just go over and just be free with. Like, that is the coolest thing. So that's how it kind of steam headed. And then my mom was a band photographer growing up.
Oh,
So
cool.
for yeah, she did some really cool stuff, like for High Times magazine. She shot for Blondie and a few other big ones. And so that was like my very first assistant job, was like doing helping her get the models ready and getting things ready. And I kind of rallied against doing any type of photography for the longest time, because it's like, God, I did this all the time in high school. I don't want to do this anymore. And now, when I started doing OnlyFans, I was like, oh, maybe I should pick up the camera and see what I can do with this. And before I knew it, I was so like excited about it and creating different scenes and literature, fantasy. That's very much my vibe. Like, adult fairy tale is a huge thing for me. So I started incorporating all of that. And that's kind of where I am right now, where a lot of my outfits that I create come from. And I bring them into my OnlyFans world, where I can just be as fun and as free and fantasy oriented as I want to, without having to worry about censorship.
It's a tough thing, but I don't know where the censorship is exactly because I go onto Twitter or X and then I see literal like hardcore porn scenes being shown, right? You go onto
Oh yeah.
Instagram, these girls are practically giving out their handles and their email addresses to book them for personal appearances. It's kind of I, I don't know where this censorship comes from. I feel as though
It's
it's
really
very
interesting.
particular and it's very targeted. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. I have lost 5 different accounts on Instagram in the last several years. So it took me a really long time to sort of figure out where, like, okay, what am I allowed to do? How do I get seen? And that way I can still get people either to my blog or to my Substack or to any of these other places where it's the content I really enjoy the most promoting.
Hmm.
And that's kind of why my Instagram is very, a friend of mine said, like, your Instagram's so tame. Like, it's not like all the other girlies out there that have OnlyFans. Why aren't you, showing more? I'm like, because I've been nailed so many times and I'm terrified.
It shouldn't be like that.
Yeah, I wish I had an answer as to why some women can get, I don't want to say get away with, but it feels like that sometimes. Like, man, she's out there, and because she has 1.5 million followers, she's allowed to be practically naked. And I have, only 250,000 followers, and I have to cover everything up practically. It feels like shit sometimes, but I know that the people that really want to find the good stuff, they know where to go. They're going to go and hunt through, the link tree or whatever to get to the good stuff.
Yeah, I've got to get on Linktree. Like that is my goal this week is just to get Linktree done finally after all this time. Do you use a different name as a sex educator or do you use your actual Tiffany Chan? Are you looking for a safe way to bet online where there is something for everyone, including yourself? Then go to betonline.ag where I am sure you will find something. Don't forget, it's betonline.ag for the most variety and the safest way to bet online.
When I first started doing kink education and sex education and whatnot, I started with Dr. K, and the K came from Kippany, which is my Hawaiian name, and Hawaii is kind of like my second home. So I stuck with that because at the time I was still working at the corporation, so I didn't want to screw myself, until I was like ready to just say, F you guys, and off I go. So I started with Dr. K, and Kippany is where that comes from. Now because of all of the fakes and the imposters and the constant copyright infringement that I deal with, I had to seek verification on all the platforms to try and get Meta to help just a little bit. Like, please, for the love of God, help me. Because I was getting so many people coming to me saying, oh, somebody's pretending to be you and they're asking for money. It's like, I felt obligated to have to do something to protect my followers. Like, y'all are my family. You're the reason I'm doing this. I need to do something. So I made the very kind of scary decision to just use my legal name. So Dr. Tiffany Chan is the legal name. And it's like, so far I've been okay, and I have a great legal team, so it helps. But yeah, I had to start out with a fake name, and Kippany is just sort of the stage name at this point.
That makes sense. And one of the things that really fascinated me about you was your time in Kyoto, Japan. So everyone listening knows that I work in Japan with pro wrestling. It is one of the toughest languages to learn, guys, and I have this pet peeve. I speak 5 languages. I'm like on my 6th very soon. Since I was 5, I just feel it's disrespectful to go to another country and not even know a few words, not even how to say, hey, I'm so sorry, I don't speak whatever. It is Norwegian or German. But yet, Japanese is so difficult. Like, those translator bubbles are used widely, But what made you go to Kyoto of all places? And it's gorgeous there, by the way.
Oh, it is. It was it hot. I was not prepared for the heat. I will
Oh,
say that right off the
yeah.
bat. It was very hot. But my husband actually he was born in Hong Kong, and he has lived in 5 different countries around the world throughout his life, and his family goes to Japan very regularly. So this was actually an entire like group experience of going to Japan with 9 people and literally traveling from Tokyo to Osaka, Mount Fuji, and Kyoto. So it was kind of the introduction for me as kind of a new person in the family to go with them and go through all of these different travel experiences. But they also know that I am a big one for like documenting everything. I'm going to write about it. I'm going to take pictures of absolutely everything under the sun. That was the main reason for going. And then finding out that my husband can speak fluent Japanese, it was like, oh, I had no idea.
Yeah. I'm very jealous, by the way. Um, it's one of those things, like I still would like to learn aside from the few words that I do know in Japanese. Tell us about your fascination with goishan.
The Goistons, yes. I had no idea that these existed until I got there. And one of the big things that I really wanted to do in Japan was seeing the temples. And so we made time to go and do some of these hikes. And it felt honestly like a pilgrimage in the heat because it's 91 degrees. It's 90 some odd percent, humidity, going up these little villages into these mountains, into the sky practically. And it was, we get up to the top and you're just taken, your breath is completely taken away by the magnitude of these temples and seeing the golden Buddhas, and then finding out that it's just how old it is compared to what we have here in the United States and how it stood the test of time. It's, to me, that was just a spiritual experience, just being there. And I started seeing people walking around with these really beautiful books, and they were bound together, in such an old world way. And being, my master's degree is in creative writing. I taught world literature for so long. So for me to see something, so beautiful, I was just intrigued. And I started going up and like, what is this? And they started telling me about the Goshuans and how you could go, and the Buddhists, some of the priests and things like that would go and put your they were mantras or blessings, dreams. They would write them down for just a small fee, like 300 yen or so. And you would have this beautiful piece of art and you would collect them as you go through all of these temples in Japan. There's like 3,000 temples in Japan. So I'm thinking like, wow, I want to go see every single one of these. And that's how I started collecting them and just finding out what each one meant and how it had a special place and a special stamp to that specific spot in time at that specific temple. I don't know how to describe it. It just felt, I felt such a pull and just so much happiness being there in that moment. So now I am a diehard, like, I can't wait to go back to Japan again and go travel to more of these temples.
So I just wanted to be clear about this. The Guishan, and it's Goisiun or
Yes.
Shiun? Yes. What exactly is that? Is that I mean, it's just, I know that listeners are going to ask me and DM me.
Oh, yes.
Okay, thank you.
No worries. I actually wish I had my book sitting here in
Yes.
front of me right now and I could show it to you. They are special. It's calligraphy. It's Japanese calligraphy that is put in your book, and some of them will do like actually calligraphy into the book itself. Other ones you can purchase like a little piece of paper that has the stamp that means that specific temple, and it's usually in correlation to a specific time of year or a specific celebration of some sort. And they'll write the date in there, and then also some a blessing or some sort of a dream or a wish for you specifically. And so each one is completely different from another. And when you stop to realize there's 3,000 different temples and at different times of the year, all have something different to offer you, to give you something to take away and to look back on this experience and feel a connection to that space. That's pretty damn special to me. So, yeah, they're just pieces of paper that are absolutely beautiful, and each one is a unique piece of artwork that goes in a special book.
You strike me as the type of person that would go to Japan or somewhere, let's say another city that has a lot of history to it, and instead of being that annoying influencer with, oh my God, like, God, you got to do this, like, this is so cool and groovy, I see you as the sort of person that just takes it all in. And maybe you have minimal video and maybe a few photos, but not like thousands and hundreds. Am I correct? Or am I wrong?
There's definitely, I would say there's thousands and hundreds of photos, but they're not of me. They're photos of like specific foods or a place that we went or an alleyway or just, I think that's probably a little bit of the artist in me because it's not about me. It's about documenting this experience and how special this is. I never left home when I was younger. Like I was always a sheltered, I was homeschooled for God's sakes. Like I
Oh,
didn't
Lord.
go anywhere, I didn't do anything. So when now as an adult and I have the means, like seeing the world and really seeing it for the first time, it's something I want to treasure and share with other people because I know this isn't a place that everyone gets to. I want to be able to bring like this is what my experience was. Maybe when you go, you'll have a different experience, but check out some of the stuff that isn't the mainstream because I think that's where you get the most culture is not in the mainstream stuff.
And unfortunately, when you go into these smaller villages or towns, I'm in south of France part of the year. I won't say exactly where because I don't want these little hacks to come up there with their fucking phones, excuse my English, and ruin it. We actually have signs in this village where it does not allow videotaping, it does not allow cell phone usage. And I love it because then all of a sudden you see everyone just swarming to go somewhere else. Thank you. Please just stay out of our village or of our town. Um, it's like a hit or miss with that, I feel. That whole culture of TikToking and using these, having everyone come to these villages and swarm them. Santorini Island now in Greece cannot occupy more than cannot accommodate more than 7,000 people or 5,000 people. Now they're getting swarms and swarms and hordes of tourists after all the little white hills showed up, or that white hotel with the infinity pool shows up on everyone's Instagram and TikTok. I hope they restore it to what it once was, where they don't have to change it and chase out all of the locals. How did you get along with local culture in the smaller towns in Japan? Did you have the translator bubble if you're by yourself, or what did you do?
I was very grateful I had my husband with me through all of it, so he was able to translate and talk and whatnot, and at least help me out because I definitely didn't want to offend anyone, and I knew very small little words, konnichiwa or arigato, very simple things, but nothing like the way my husband could do it for me. So he was the one in charge of most of the communications and figuring things out. And then with his family, who, gosh, they just got done doing like a 6 week stint there. And before that, they used to spend a good half the year going back and forth between Hong Kong and Japan. So it made it a lot easier for me. But the translator, the Google Translate, was definitely helpful when I'm reading, menus, and if I'm happen to be like just walking through and trying to do a little bit of shopping on my own for 2 seconds, it helped a lot.
And what was your experience with the spa? Not many listeners know this or viewers know this, but if you go to Japan, most spas will not allow you to come in if you have lots of tattoos because they think it might be linked to gang activity or crime. Did you have issues with your tattoos?
I did. And I knew going in that there was going to be some of that that could pop up. I wasn't sure if that was just maybe for the men's side of things, or if women were excluded as well from being able to go to certain bathhouses. But we had gone to Mount Fuji, and at the hotel that we were staying at, they happened to have a bathhouse there. And the bathhouse is also the only place that had a washing machine. I didn't have any, and I was like, oh, maybe I'll go and check out the bathhouse and whatnot. I need to go do some laundry. So I took all of my laundry up in there to go and just do that and then check out the area. And I was told that I needed to leave. And I was like, well, um, you know, laundry, like I just need to wash clothes. That's all. And they point to the sign where it clearly says no tattoos are allowed. And it was like, there was that part of me that was like wow, I just got shamed for having tattoos. Like, but at the same time, reminding myself, okay, this is a different culture. This is a different area. It's not about me. This is about, this is their area. So I grabbed my laundry and I left and I found a laundromat.
Yeah, I totally get it. And that I think that's a big thing a lot of people do not understand. It is not about you when you go to another country. Let's be better than that, folks. Let's do better. Let us go to foreign places and understand that it is not about us. And this goes specifically for a lot of Americans that go overseas. I was raised mostly in a European household, so I already was brought up with a different culture. So when I go to other places and I see people coming and going and doing all these just stupid things, it's like take it down by 20. We may not have the best internet in this town, and we're not going to change it. I went to Cambria in Central Coast, California. Have you been there before?
I haven't yet, no.
You've got to go. It's definitely something you and the family would enjoy, you and your hubby. Um, it's beautiful, but the cell phone towers suck, which is great, and the internet. But I'm just happy the cell phone towers suck because you do not see the weekender from LA coming up with the headset, like the wireless headbuds in, or doing this, yeah, blah, 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 on speakerphone. It's so important to just take that away from society for a few minutes and get back to culture.
I 100% agree. I see that. I think that was one of the nicest things I remember about Japan is so many places where there wasn't so much of the in your face. There, people gave a damn about, just being kind about. I think that one of the other biggest things that I noticed, there was not a lot of trash cans all over the place, but it was one of the cleanest places I'd ever been. And I was asking my husband about that. I'm like, you go to Disneyland here and there's a trash can at every, other turn. You go to Disneyland in Japan, you have to go hunt one down if you need one. And he's like, well, that's the thing. People care enough that they will take their trash and hold on to it until they get home to throw it away because this is a public space. They're not going to crowd up the public space with their shit. Like that to me was such a mind-blowing, like it sounds very silly, I'm sure, but it was like, why can't we be more like that here? But caring about the environment, caring about the people around us, caring about just something that isn't ours. But yeah, just things that you notice when you go to other countries, I suppose.
It totally makes sense, and I love it. It's one of the things I just hope that we kind of can get back to, and just the individualism of each country, and the cultures. Because I don't go to Japan to experience Italian culture, but I did have Italian food there. It wasn't the best, but I love the seafood and the karage chicken, because the karage is so much different there than here. Did you find that the food was healthier there? Like even McDonald's, even if you went to McDonald's.
Everything was it was so nice to not have things that were just drenched in sauce or drenched in sugar. And the portion sizes were very different. The portion sizes you get here, it's like it's a hubcap, of a plate of food. You go there and it's like these small bits, and it's kind of like you go at your own pace, and everything just was cleaner. I don't know how to describe like a clean taste, but it was just clean. It was amazing. My favorite food, though, I gotta say, was the takoyaki.
Mm-hmm.
We went down to Osaka and found like authentic takoyaki. Oh, you can't find it here. I've tried. I've tried going all over LA, even Little Tokyo. They don't have it the way that they have it in Japan. It is so good.
Yeah, they just opened up this new Japanese place down the street from me. It's a very limited menu, and they have the karage chicken. So I'm tempted to go there today and just try it out. But I could just wait like a couple of weeks too and have like the real stuff. So tell me a little about the article Ink, Temples, and Tradition, My Discovery of Goishins in Japan. Is that one of your more proud works to date? Is that one of your most favorite ones? Because it seems like it is.
It's definitely one of my favorites, because so much of my behind the scenes stuff, I don't get out to travel as much as I really would love to. So a lot of stuff is LA specific, or I did a couple of videos for like going to St. Thomas and St. Martin and whatnot. But this was the first time I'd really experienced like going completely over the pond in some way. And that was such an absolutely crazy experience on so many levels. And I wanted to document as much of it as I could. That was probably the most influential piece of the entire trip for me. So that was the first article I came out with for it. But I have enough content to sit and write easily about every single place that we visited over those 2 weeks. And that's what's sitting on my editing table as we speak.
Yeah, and what I do like about you is I've come across so many female writers. I was living with a professional writer for many years, but he wrote a book called Generation Kill, American Desperado. Like he actually wrote books. So you won't like believe the amount of like female writers I came into contact with in LA. They had the glasses, but hold on, the glasses were like so big for their faces, and you call yourself a writer. It's just at times I found myself biting my tongue to not correct them. But obviously, you have the credentials and you put a lot of soul into your work. So, if people would like to read more of your things, would they go online?
You can definitely go to tiffanychanofficial.com and you can get links to all the places that I do writing. I was recently featured, one of my short stories is in the Best Buy Erotica of the Year, and that is now out on Amazon. It was done in collaboration with a colleague of mine, Mr. Christian Pan. And then you can go to my Substacks. I have two different Substacks. One is the Tiffany Secret Diary, which is my behind the scenes and personal life experience type stuff, the things that I'm most passionate about. And then Artistic Edge magazine, which is more sexology, kink education, and erotica, and it's in collaboration with several other kink educators out there. So those are the main places for all of my writing pieces so far, until I can find the time to write a book. That would be great, but
Are you on Good?
probably not in the near future.
Do you do Goodreads at all?
I do. I have an entire Goodreads list and I do reviews on there, all that kind of fun stuff.
Oh my God. It's unreal with literary fans and just people that are in that world, because I never heard of Substacks until I dated someone who was doing this professionally. So for people who don't know what a Substack is, could you please describe it so fans could actually go into Substacks and look for really cool things?
Definitely. You have to kind of hunt a little bit if you're looking for anything that is a little bit more either sexuality based or adult based. and it's not that they don't allow it, because they definitely do. They allow nudity, they allow like all that kind of stuff on there, but they do suppress some of that type of content from showing up in the regular feed. So you have to kind of know where to go and how to find that kind of stuff. But Substack started out as a newsletter, and it was like a paid for newsletter that people could go to and, you know, get something sent in your inbox. Now they are branching out entirely to creating more forums. There's chat modules. There's ways to connect with other authors. They now have live streaming. They have a lot of different things. It's kind of, if you could imagine, all the social medias stopped worrying about so much crap and started worrying more about substance. That's kind of what Substack would be. At least that's how I feel about it.
I think the people who are more serious and have the talent and something to actually say are in Substack.
Definitely. I definitely agree with that.
I know that sounds very cruel because we're out here to try to help other people and want them to do it. But truthfully, some people should not be picking up a fucking pen and putting it to paper, let alone a keyboard and typing away their bullshit. Because I'm telling you, I think I've heard it all and seen it all at this point in my life. With the sex educator side of things, do you find that you get any content creators coming to you? Because that's a whole other world after adult films, obviously, and I'm learning more and more about it. Do they come to you for anything? Because I think some of them are underinformed in the business of adult.
So in terms of other creators and whatnot, I do have like an open sort of forum that I have on my Patreon for other creators. I try to create different articles and things about just things that I've experienced and what's worked for me, what doesn't work for me, what I'm seeing just in the industry. But so far, most of my clients are actually people looking to open up their relationship in consensual non-monogamy, people that are trying to explore their kinks and fetishes in a safe environment, in a safe way, not obviously with me, but talking about how to find a community for themselves and getting over some of the anxieties of being a new person in the community and not being seen as someone with a bunch of red flags, but how to work through your own situations so that you can be a contributing member of those types of subcultures. But for content creators, I belong to two different erotic content creator groups where we all help each other. So usually if I have somebody that comes to me, I'll immediately say, hey, you should join up with this group because it's a great community of other creators and we all are really supportive to one another. So that's usually my number one place that I send them to, just because I don't know everything. I'm still, you know, putzing around trying to figure out this whole thing myself. And there's a lot of other people that are way better experts at being a content creator in terms of the social media sides of things than I am.
Well, now I know what sets you apart from all of the other sex educators on TikTok. You actually have degrees and you are educated and you know what you're talking about because there are a lot of people out there giving misinformation. And there's also a set of girls that go on TikTok talking about how to do porn, and they should just keep their fucking mouths shut because they have no clue what they're talking about. And I could tell you, there are way more many outbreaks of STDs now in content creation and that side of things with adult. Even though we had our AIDS scares during the 90s and I lived through all of them clean and free of that stuff, this has gotten way worse as time has gone on because of people putting content out there on TikTok. I wish it could be more regulated.
I 100% agree. And I think that's the one thing that kind of irks me a little bit. And there's not a lot of things that really irk me. This one really, really does, because you don't need to have a degree to be a kink educator, to be a sex educator, a sex coach. You don't need any of it. And then most people don't even realize that a corporation or an organization like ASECT actually exists. And ASECT is actually out there putting things together to make this a sex educators go through ASECT to get their credentials, sex therapists, psychologists, all of the people that are in mental health go through ASEC to get their credentials and certified. If you are not doing an ASEC certified program, you're missing out on a huge component that gives you not only credibility, but it helps to make you a safe person for other people to go to. It's, yeah, I do wish that there was more regulation with it than there actually is. But unfortunately, there isn't. So do your homework, people. Please do your homework on the person that you want to work with.
Seriously, or just being in the business itself, because it makes it unsafe for everyone when one person has misinformation from some person that's an influencer. I have no clue who they're influencing. Um, So, a question about sexual surrogates. I've seen things about sexual surrogates. Some people treat it as prostitution. I don't know if there's a fine line that flirts in between there. Could you explain that more and what your thoughts are on it?
Definitely. So I know in the United States, it's a sex surrogate would be considered a sex worker, and so it's technically seen as prostitution. So it's illegal here in the United States. I know up in Canada, it's actually seen as something positive. It can be part of a wellness situation. So it's definitely seen in different lights. And I personally, I've only met one sexual surrogate, and they actually came to an IC workshop to talk about the different types of ways that sexuality is seen in mental health and the different ways that other countries are working within it. I think it's a great thing, especially if there is somebody that is maybe disabled and they want to still be able to see their partner feeling fulfilled and things like that. I think in those ways, sexual surrogates are definitely vital and needed, and they can really help. But when they're painted as such, as prostitutes and things like that, and they're just lumped into that same category, it's to me, it's just really, really sad because we're leaving out an entire community of people that really, truly need something like that. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah, it does make sense completely. Some people just treat it differently, and I know that I'm not disclosing too much information. It was a patient of mine who was discussing it, but I think she also might have had some other issues that morning. Um, since menopause is such a touchy time for some people. But I believe it's also the person that was advertising how they advertise their services, because a sexual surrogate is supposed to help you through something. And I actually went on the website that she sent me. There were some creepy looking guys on there. I'm sorry. It's just like, so they might be the real deal because you don't want someone that's too attractive. Uh, or maybe they weren't. I don't know. But it's good to know that there is a difference. And it's good to know that you went through ASAC, which seems like it's a very important thing. So it's not just another pretty woman doing this type of work, is actually someone that knows what they're talking about and is out there not giving misinformation on TikTok, but actual helpful information. If people want to go on your TikTok, what is your TikTok and what's your link tree?
So you can go to Tiffany Chan Official, and you can get to absolutely everything on there. It's like my main hub for all of my links to all of my places. My TikTok is primarily my fantasy outfits and design type stuff. So you're not going to see a whole lot of educational stuff there, but that's Kippany87. You can go to kippany.life on Instagram. That's where all of my educational stuff is for Instagram. And whenever I post a new article or a new podcast or anything like that, goes on there. Or Kippany 1021 is my sort of main Instagram as well. So
Great.
yeah, those are the number one places.
So Tiffany Chan Official, that's TIFFANYCHAN
Yep.
official.com. And that's refreshing. Someone has a .com. You go in there for all of her links and her writings as well. So hopefully you come out with a book. I would probably buy it because I can't wait to see the artistic aspect of it. By any chance, and don't take this the wrong way, are you an October baby or November?
I am October 21st.
You're
That
2
is
days
awesome.
before me. Oh my God, that's so cool.
It is Libra season.
Yeah, it is. I think I'm right on the cusp, but I've been branded as more of a Scorpio.
Same for me. My birthday is exactly like 12 hours before it hits into Scorpio season. So I tell people all the time that I aggressively seek balance in my life. I am both aggressive and I want balance.
I don't want the balance. I'll just stay bold and aggressive. I'm totally fine with that. At this stage in my life, I just don't care. It is what it is. And I'm glad that you have a space that allows people to be who they want to be, and services for that. That's amazing. And keep up the writing. I can't wait to see your Goishin. I'm going to go check it out after. And maybe I'll try to go do that same type of tour. Well, thank you so much for joining us, and sit tight.